Welcome back to the shop. I got a quick little fun project here today. I got a 54 Ford on the hoist that someone brought over. Runner, driver, got a 350 in it, Chevy with a 5-speed Camaro trans, got a single exhaust on it, and he brought over this AutoLoc flamethrower kit for single exhaust. We're gonna put this thing on here and see what it does. So I'll get a pair of scissors, butcher this thing open, and see what it tells us to do. Alright, so there's really not a lot to this thing. It came with a wiring diagram here. All we really got to do is cut the factory ignition coil wire. This one has an HEI on it. We'll just have to cut the input power, run it to the 30 and the 87A terminals on the provided relay, and then run our wire from the flamethrower box, and then run the green wire down to our extra coil, which I'll probably mount in the trunk of the car. This should work out pretty slick. His wiring's all done nice in here. We got our coil wire, our pink wire, coming right down to the HEI cap back there. So all we got to do is split that. Probably make, I'm probably gonna have to make one end longer of it to get up to the relay. I'll probably mount the relay right up at the top over here. And the cool part is there's a grommet there, open into the car, not even being used. So it's a perfect place for us to run our power in and out, and our trigger to the relay. Should work pretty good. I'm going to have to make a little bracket for that, probably an L-shaped bracket to come off the back of this here, to come up and over forward so I can screw it to the bottom of the dash. No big deal. Matter of fact, I got just enough room behind it back here. I could probably get about 1-inch lip on it and have the thing mounted pretty much flush like this. Which works even better because I see the lid flips all the way up now. So that's what we'll do. There we go, all back together. Now we'll go put her under the dash. Alright, well there it is, mounted up under the dash. Got my ground screwed to the dash ready for the grounding part of the electrical system on it. Cap flips up, you can access it, push it, flip the cap back down. On this kit there's also another remote button you could use, where in the instructions it says if you want to hide this whole box, you can zip tie this up or put it wherever under the dash and literally just have this somewhere, and this will also activate the flame. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of move it over and put it over there, kind of under the ignition key, maybe in the far corner over here, just for like an auxiliary place to go from if you want to use your left hand to do it, or your right hand over here, or whatever you want to do. Just give you more options from where you can light it up. You probably almost could have the door open, driver's door open, lean outside, you know, stick your foot into the gas pedal, rev it up, and then hit that button, and that'll save you from having to be sitting in the car while you're doing it. So I'll put that one over there for just another access point for it. As for now, I'm going to lift this thing up in the air and get my spark plug in the exhaust pipe. I'm sure I'll have to make a bung of some kind to put the spark plug into the pipe, because the kit didn't come with that either. The owner had bought this spark plug wire here, probably assuming I would put the coil under the car, but I think what I'm going to do is put the coil in the trunk, and I have a roll of old 7mm spark plug wire that I can run from inside the trunk here on the wheel well down to the exhaust pipe. That way everything stays out of the elements, the coil's in the trunk, and there's no messing around. It's not getting blasted with water and all kinds of other stuff. So we'll get this thing up in the air and see what we need to do to get the spark plug in the exhaust pipe. Alright, so let's take a look under here. I've got a perfect place for that spark plug. He's got two in the one coming out the side here in a single pipe, and this is pretty much the perfect area to put my spark plug. Probably try to get out here a little towards the end, probably a couple inches from the body, and then I can run that plug wire up into the trunk and get to my coil. So I'm going to go try and find a nut or a bung or something to screw that spark plug in, and then drill the hole and weld it on. Well, this should be just about perfect for our pipe. Got about, I'd say, probably 3/4 of an inch from the outside here to the inside of where the electrode is. That'll get us hanging inside the pipe a good solid 1/2 inch. So I'll pull the nut back off this plug and weld get my hole drilled in the pipe, weld the nut around it, and that's our bung. Alright, so before I try to weld through this galvanized on this nut here, I'm going to run over to the sandblaster and give it a quick blast and take all the coating off of it, get a little better weld on it. Let's go do that real quick. Alright, so I got my nut welded into place now, and while I let that cool down, I'm going to run over and get that roll of spark plug wire, get an end crimped on it for down here, locate where I'm going to drop down through, get a grommet put in that, and get that stuff sent up there. Also, I can make a clamp. There's no bracket for the coil, so I'll make a generic aluminum clamp to hold that in the trunk of the car. Alright, so my grommet's in. Get the end of my plug wire here. And start feeding it down. And there we go. Put the roll up here and feed a little out so we can pull on it. Done. Lift it back up. Get it hooked to that spark plug. Alright, so I got my good W crimp on my plug wire end. I can pull my boot down now. And we're good to go. I'll go get the spark plug and roll that in. So I found a coil bracket laying around here for my coil. I put that on already, so that saves me the time I having to make it. Now I'm going to get over there and mount it up next to the battery on the side of the wheel well. So my coil is mounted now. My back terminal here is my ground, so I'm going to end up taking that and just running it over and grounding it on this this bolt here coming through for the bracket. I'll just double nut it, put my ground from there up to the ground, and then the hot side's going to run all the way to the front of the car and get tied into that controller box. So I'll probably just run my wire up over here, catch in with the tail light section, and run it up to the front under the sill plate. So at this point I got my coil wire hooked up to the coil going down under the car. I got my spark plug installed and the end on my spark plug wire down there and hooked up. And I was going to ground my ground for the coil to this bolt, but I didn't have quite enough thread sticking out, and I'm like, well, I might as well just stick it right to the negative side of the battery. So that's all said and done, and my next order of business is running that hot wire from here up to the front of the car to the controller box. So before I do that, I'm pretty much done under the car. I'm going to take this thing off the rack, back it up so I can get in the doors a lot easier. Alright, so I just put my sill plate back on. I got my wire ran up here. This is my wire coming from the coil in the trunk, running all the way back down. I pulled my secondary switch over here. I'm going to get that in the bottom of the dash here in just a second. But I got my wire ran all the way back with the tail light section. Kind of taped it on and brought it back into the trunk. Had to pull the rear seat out to do that. And I got it ran over the wheel welder over to my coil. I'm going to hook that up right now, put the back seat back in, and then I can move on under the hood, split the coil wire on the cap under the hood, put the relay out there and get that stuff wired up and brought into the car, and we're almost done. Alright, so the first order of business is I'm going to clip the coil wire here, get my relay mounted up here, connect that up, and probably remake the wire coming back down from the relay to the distributor cap, and then pull my two wires from the relay in through this hole and bring them to that controller box. Alright, now we can move on to the inside of the car, make our last few connections, and try this thing out. Got everything hooked up. If I turn my key on, I can push either this button and it goes, or I can flip the lid, if I can reach it, and push that button. Goes off with the key. I got it hooked on the windshield wiper circuit because that's not going to be used in here. So I guess now I can go check for spark in the tailpipe, see if that's working, and as long as that's working, we'll fire this thing up, let it get up to operating temperature, let the exhaust get nice and warm, and give it a test. And I gotta throw my back seat in real quick. There we go. Alright, so I got everything cleaned up inside, the back seat's back in. I'm pretty much ready to test this thing, but I think I'm gonna do a little bit of extra here. I found a piece of pipe that fits nice and snug inside the original exhaust pipe there. And I think I'm gonna just make kind of a ridiculous tip he can put on here. If he wants to show off a little bit, maybe stick that in there, kind of give it an upward flame coming out the side. So before I test this thing out, I'm going to go over to the sandblaster, blast all those parts, get them in bare metal, and I'm going to weld that up for him and just send it along with. I think it'd be kind of cool if it kind of starts shooting up in the air. If you're at a party or a car show or something, to be kind of different. Plus, like I said earlier today, there's going to be a lot of heat right on that body. I mean, he's got his pipe completely flush with the outside panel here, so I'm thinking if you really want to throw some flames for a while, it's probably going to be a good idea to have this extension anyway. So I'm going to make a few parts, clean this up, and get it welded. So this is it, we're outside. Brian is gonna shove that tip in there, right? All right, go stick the flame throwing removable tip in. Yeah. It's got a better sound with it on. So we should be all warmed up now. I'm going to hand the camera off to Brian, the cameraman, and see what this thing can do. Here you go, Brian. good. Well, that is it, guys. Closing down the shop for the day. I'm gonna let this thing cool off before I pull it out and shove it in the trunk, but turned out pretty cool. Took most of the day to get everything done. I also fixed an oil leak on the motor off camera, but yeah, it turned out pretty cool. I sent a few videos to the customer. He loves the tip. I didn't take any footage of it without the tip, although we did do a couple trial runs without it, and it's just not nearly as cool without it. It's, you know, kind of more, when you put a bigger tip on, it kind of slows the exhaust gases down and they burn more yellow and kind of bigger and slower. Without the tip on it, it kind of just shoots out about 3 feet, a little more bluish in color. You're not slowing the gases down enough coming straight out of the pipe, but that little elbow really made a big difference. So yeah, turned out pretty cool. It was a good day at work. Customer's happy. I'll wrap it up tomorrow. I got a few things to tie up and stuff from a couple of problems I had earlier today, but everything went pretty smooth, so I'll catch you guys next time.